We'll discuss today the differences between mitzvahs ben adam makom and mitzvahs ben adam chavero. We know to be a complete Jew, one has to be diligent in the fulfillment of commandments ben adam makom, between man and God and man. So we'll just focus on one of the differences today between a mitzvah ben adam makom and a mitzvah ben adam chavero. So we know there are different types of brachas. There's what they call a bercha shevach v'hodah, a bracha of praise and thanksgiving. Berchas ha-mitzvah, the bracha before a mitzvah. There's berchas hanenin, there's a bracha before you eat. So different types of brachas we make. And in fact, not every mitzvah is clear what type of bracha. The classical case is the mitzvah of kiddushin, or if there is a mitzvah of kiddushin, the mitzvah of getting married. Everyone agrees there's a mitzvah of having children, the mitzvah of pru revu, the mitzvah of having children. However, what about the mitzvah of getting married? Does one get, that might be the only way to have children, but the question is it an independent mitzvah? That there's a mitzvah of getting married independently, then there's a mitzvah of puravu. It's the whole function of kiddushin to have children. And there are ways that one can fulfill the mitzvah of puravu even without getting married. In fact, that's the famous minchas chinuch in the beginning in halacha aleph, in his first mitzvah, where he even discusses the question of one who, not that he's recommending it, but perhaps even one who commits adultery and they have a child. Obviously he's going to get punished for the adultery, but the child, that's part of his mitzvah puravu. So either you don't necessarily have to get married to do puravu, but it's the recommended way of doing things. So either way, so there's a discussion on the mitzvah of kiddushin. The Rambam writes, you make the bracha on kiddushin just like to make the bracha on all other mitzvahs. Over lasiyos, like the Gemara tells us in Psachim, you make the bracha, then you do the mitzvah. So to kiddushin, you make the bracha on the kiddushin, and then you do the kiddushin. The Rush asks, so according to the Rambam, it's clearly a berchas ha-mitzvah. So the Rush asks, what do you mean? It's not a berchas ha-mitzvah. If it was, we would make the classical bracha, mitzvahs kedushin, or kaddish es isha. So why do we have this lashon? I also want to as arusos, vita lanu as anasuas. Why do we have this whole different function? So the Rosh concludes that no, it's only a bercha shevach v'hodah. It's a bracha on the institution of marriage. But it's not there is no mitzvah of marriage, kiddushin. The mitzvah is puravu to have children. So there's a fundamental machlokas, the Rambam and the Rosh, on whether kiddushin is a mitzvah. The nafkamina, among others, is what's the nature of the bracha? Is the bracha berchas ha-mitzvah, and hence you'd have to do it over lasiyasin, you'd make the bracha first, or according to the Rosh, if it's a berchas shevach v'hodah, so one would have to go ahead and possibly even one could even make it later, maybe even after it's better. There's interesting shitas a Ravid that says the Ravid agrees with the Rambam fundamentally, it's a berchas ha-mitzvah, but nevertheless, the Rambam writes, the Ravid writes, so you make the bracha after the kiddushin. So the question is why? Bishkom, according to the Rambam, it's a berchas ha-mitzvah, you make it before. According to the Rosh, it's a berchas ha-vodah, you can make it after. But according to the Ravid, who says it's a berchas ha-mitzvah, why make it after? So that's what they explain. Like we have a klal by berchas ha-mitzvahs that you only make a bracha on something which is in your control, as much as anything is in your control. So since you don't know if the woman can accept the kiddushin, you don't want it to be a bracha of atala, a blessing in vain. Hence, you wait till after the kiddushin, kind of like the Rashba writes by the mitzvah of tzedakah, except he says you don't make a bracha at all. The Rashba writes that we're concerned the ani might not accept tzedakah, so therefore one cannot make a bracha on the tzedakah. So why not make a bracha after? So then there are other reasons we have to get into why you don't make a bracha on tzedakah. But fundamentally, the Rosh and the Rashba seem to have the same yisod. You can't make a bracha over l'asiyason. You can't make the bracha before the mitzvah if it's not exclusively in your hands. I'm making afterwards. That could be it could be a fundamental machlokas Rashba and Rosh whether you make a bracha afterwards, or it could be just a technical issue. There could be a difference between tzedakah and the mitzvah of kedusha. But either way, in general, is a machlokas the Rambam or Zarua about making a bracha achar hamitzvah. The machlokas is in hilchos shchita. We know you're supposed to make the bracha before you do the shchita, but if you do it afterwards, so the Rambam writes, that's it. Once you missed it, that's it. It's over. You can't make a bracha after the mitzvah. And the Or Zarua disagrees and says you can. What is the issue? What is nekudas hamachlokas? The issue is that according to the Rambam, clearly the bracha is a hachana of a mitzvah. It's a preparation for the mitzvah, and therefore, once you do the mitzvah, there's no point in doing the bracha. According to the Or Zarua, it seems to enhance the mitzvah. So it's ideally to enhance it by doing it before, but you can enhance it by doing it afterwards as well. So either way, it's so we see. But even though the mitzvah of kedushin is a mitzvah, but other makom, presumably we'll see. Because we'll see, because the Rambam says you make a bracha. The Rambam tells us in Hilchas Brachas, I think Perek Yudal, when he goes through the column of brachas, the Rambam says that when the Chazal say you make a bracha on a mitzvah, that's a mitzvah ben adam lamakom, a mitzvah between man and God, lulav, sukkah, shofar. But a mitzvah ben adam l'chaveiro, one does not make a bracha. That's the klal of the Rambam, and that's why according to the Rambam you have one clean sweep in terms of all the different mitzvahs. Ben adam l'chaveiro, you don't have to go into specifics. Nicham avela and bikar cholim, kfura. Each of the mitzvahs is very simple. According to the Rambam, there's no bracha because categorically you don't make a bracha on a mitzvah ben adam l'chaveiro. According to other Rishonim, that doesn't seem to be, because they give other reasons. Like the Rashba says, it's because the ani might not accept it. If they say it's a mitzvah ben adam l'chaveiro, and therefore you won't have to come on to the issue. So it seems to be a fundamental machlokas Rishonim whether they agree. But the Rambam is clear. The Rambam writes, you only make, and that seems to be our practice, that we don't make brachas on mitzvah ben adam l'chaveiro. The question is it just a categorically thing, or it could be like the Rashba is saying that by definition every ben adam l'chaveiro might be dependent on someone else, and that's why you can't make a bracha. So we'll see if it's more of a technical or fundamental machlokas. But either way, the Rambam clearly states no brachas on mitzvahs ben adam l'chaveiro. Why not? Why don't we make brachas on mitzvahs ben adam l'chaveiro? So the Bali Musar explain and other darshanim, because another poskim, that imagine the scene: someone comes, a poor person comes to your door and bangs on the door. He's starving, he wants food, and he knocks on the door and you see he's very hungry, and you run into the kitchen, you get the food, you bring it out, and you're about to give him the food, and he says, just wait a second. Baruch Atah Hashem, and you have a great bracha with a lot of kavana at his expense, and the time you give the food, the ani faints. Or even if I say he doesn't, but you cause the ani to wait for food for 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds. It might not seem a lot, but if you're starving, it is a lot of time. So they point out that it doesn't make any sense that Chazal or rabbis wouldn't institute a bracha on something which interferes with the mitzvah. If by making a bracha it's going to be taking away from the mitzvah, because we mentioned in other shiurim, one of the other fundamental differences between mitzvahs that Adam L'Makam and Adam Chavero is that by Adam Chavero the emphasis is on the Totzah, the result, that you're helping the person. And that's why they point out by the mitzvah of tzedakah that even if you have a $50 bill, it drops out of your pocket and the right person picks it up, i.e. the ani, the poor person, so you get the mitzvah of tzedakah. You get the mitzvah of tzedakah because the bottom line, you help the ani. So we see as well that not only is the Indian, and they seem to go together as well, they seem to go together, that the ani, that one doesn't make a bracha on a mitzvah Adam Chavero, and as well, because the ikar is the totzah, not the ma'isa. You make the bracha, you want to make the bracha, usually it's on the ma'isa mitzvah, on the yeshiva sukkah, on the shmiyas kol shofar. And as well, it ties into mitzvah svichas kavana, whether mitzvahs require intent. So we know it's a whole discussion in the Gemara, whether mitzvahs require intent. So, apparent contradiction in the Rambam. So we paskin, at least on a mitzvah in our Torah, mitzvah svichas kavana, and a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, we say that we don't svichas kavana. But that whole machlokas, the post can point out, is only on a machlokas ben adam u'makom. On a mitzvah adam chavero, you don't need the kavana. The kavana is not critical, because let's say you spent 2 hours doing bikar cholim on nicham avelim, and you did a tremendous impact. And you say, oh yeah, wait, I forgot to have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah, so ideally one should have in mind that you're doing it as well as a mitzvah, but perhaps even if not, you have fulfilled the mitzvah, because the mitzvah is the totzah. So we'll have to continue, but we so different nafkaminas are, number one, the bracha, no bracha on mitzvahs b'adam chavero. The difference is when it comes to b'adam l'makom, it's the ma'isa, but when it comes to b'adam chavero, it's the result, and as well as the concept of mitzvah svichas kavana that seems to apply to mitzvahs between man and God, but your kavana is less critical when it comes to b'adam chavero. The main purpose is that you're helping the individual.